The most exciting moment of it is when we contact the presentation suite in London at the BBC. They give us a countdown, and it's the most amazing feeling when you do live television, and you hear London presentation saying on air in 1 minute, and then you get the countdown. It's kind of 30 seconds, sort of 15, 10, and then you have to run your opening credits, and it's kind of the whole machine starts to roll, and that is the most exciting thing. I wasn't exactly nervous, but it is the most exciting thing when that happens, and you get one hell of a buzz. The adrenaline starts running, and you're also aware of everybody around you being on edge with you. It's the great thing of live television. And you know that of the 160 people there, every single one of them is going to do their best now. They've all worked towards this, and they're going to do everything they can to make it work.
I must say that the half hour or the hour before transmission was possibly one of the most terrifying of my life. And I remember sitting in the outside broadcast truck next to Sam, and our knuckles were white with panic just before we began.
The whole experience of Quatermass was really great, and I'm really glad I did it. I loved the rehearsal process, the fact that we were all doing it by the skin of our teeth. We were all scared, you know, nobody had done it before. That was really exciting. We were all having to look after each other. Laughing the whole way through was great. And doing it, that moment when we were in the control room, Jason Fleming, Mark Gatiss and myself starting the entire thing off, and with the countdown, 3. That was absolutely terrifying and amazing. It was an amazing feeling.
You know, there's a camera there and there's someone going, what? This thing that I've never seen before was like, 1, 2, 3. That was a whole new thing for us.
The half hour leading up to it, I kind of thought I'll go into my dressing room and I'll just sit. And I went into the dressing room and I sat, and I was alone for about 6 seconds, and I went, no, this really isn't good to be on your own. This is a bad move. So I got up and left, and then I was like chatting to people, and that wasn't a good move. I mean, it was absolutely the most terrifying time I've ever had. It was really scary. And the first 3 seconds they do this thing where they go, and then he actually said, he goes, we're going live to the nation in 5, 4. And we all just went, ah. I mean, you can't really tell, but on the third line of the first scene, I didn't even know what I was talking about. I was completely and utterly out of my mind with nerves. And I said something, and Indra looked at me, and she went, knowing full, because what I said was absolutely nothing to do with what I was meant to say. It was from another scene in about 40 minutes. I just said something, and she just looked at me. And Mark Gatiss is the rock. I mean, whenever you're in real, he will rescue you. He's amazing. He's one of the most intelligent actors I've ever met, but he always says, he's so self-effacing, he always says, you know, don't mistake a good memory for intelligence, because I mean, he remembers everything. He remembers every fact, everything. And he's a rock, so I'm just glad he was always there, thank God, because he'd always help you out.
I got a tremendous rush off it, particularly the first scene. I remember feeling kind of tingling, and then running down to the crash site in 40 seconds to get the biohazard suit, and it was like you know, just like nothing else really.
I suppose it had the same sense of occasion as the first night in a theatre, and that same sense is when you go till you finish, and there's no going back. But obviously, it's, you know, it's not the same, because it was to cameras, and it was a one-shot deal. We didn't have to go back the next night and do it again.
It started off feeling like it was going to be very theatrical, but then it was just its own thing. It was curiously just as adrenaline fueled and like a kind of first night, or only night as it actually was. But it just didn't really feel like anything else. It was kind of unreal, and we came almost straight off a technical run into the actual performance. So you know, you can't really think about the fact that the cameras are, oh God, as it was, like 500,000 people at the other end of it. It was just like curiously quiet. That's what I felt. It was, after all the sort of mad rush and everything, just to actually perform it.
There were so many things that could go wrong that actually I couldn't isolate any one thing. I mean, and I always thought that, you know, the kind of things that go wrong are the simplest things. You know, they're the tiniest things. You know, a wheel dropping off a dolly, or a camera head getting locked, or something really, and not a cable getting caught around someone's shoe, or something really annoyingly simple. I remember there was an amazing moment where Richard fell. My executive was sat in the sort of room, adjoining room to the scanner wagon, and he was watching it in there. And he said to me just before we went up, he said, "Look, I'll only come through if I've got to pull it." And I suddenly thought, crikey, he's thought of that. There might be, it could all collapse so in such a terrible way that you actually have to say, "Look, I'm sorry, we stop."
Unbelievably, nothing actually went wrong on the night. It really didn't. As far as I was concerned, absolutely everything kind of went to plan. We could have perhaps done better on one or two things, or one or two things maybe weren't quite as good as we'd done in rehearsal, but actually everything ticked along really nicely, and we were thrilled. There was no camera mistakes or sound mistakes or anything like that. I think the biggest worry we had was that we might have some kind of technical failure. I never worried about any of the staff. The people that made it, all the staff working on it, I think were absolutely faultless. There was nothing that they was going to go wrong there. But there's always that ghastly moment that one of the cameras might just have stopped working or something like that. But actually they don't. Things are much more reliable these days. And given that everything was in place and we did have such an amazing team of people around us, there were no real fears. And in fact, when we did have one of the actors did slip on a line, and we went round, there was a slight pause and a kind of hiatus. It was actually only then that it hit me that I hadn't really got a plan if anything did go wrong.
My favourite memories from doing